Hello, everyone. We're a few seconds before you can see the countdown there, the timer timing down. I'll wait a few more seconds before I start. Welcome, everyone. I'll fill in the blank. As always, with the start of a session, you have this blank you need to fill in, right? So, welcome, everyone. Um, Good. Timer has gone to zero. That means I can start. I can officially start. Let's move the timer there. And we are not starting soon. We have started. So there we go. Welcome, everyone. Um, we have a few different audiences. Some of you are on Zoom. You know how Zoom works. I'm sure you don't need to tell you how Zoom works. So at any point you need to ask a question, feel free to raise your hand and I'll bring you up so that you can ask any questions you want. There are also many of you I can see watching on one of the streams on social media. Um, if any of you prefer to swap to Zoom, the link you have in front of you there, realpython.com/live, will allow you to register and join the Zoom session. Whatever you prefer, it doesn't really matter. If you are watching the stream on one of the social media platforms, the questions will come via text. I'll keep an eye on the chat there so that any posts you put, I will see them in front of me. And if you prefer to use your voice to ask questions, you can jump onto Zoom. Um, Good. I don't want to spend too long on the intro because what we're here to do is to code, obviously. So let me briefly introduce myself. You don't care who I am, right? But I'm Stephen Gruppetta. I'm one of the core team members here at RealPython, and I'll be with you for the next 60 to 90 minutes or so, depending on how many questions you have and how the session goes. Now, an introduction about the session. This is a workshop aimed for beginners. So if you've never done any Python before, if you've never done any programming before, you are in the right place, don't worry. If you are very proficient in programming and Python, this is probably not the workshop for you. You're more than welcome to stay. I'm sure you'll enjoy it as well, especially the project we're working on today is a quite a fun project. But just to set the expectations right, to make sure that the audience matches the workshop, this is a beginner's workshop. I will not assume any knowledge, but some of you may have done some Python before, and that's fine as well. You'll find that one thing that I like to when I'm running these workshops, rather than just showing how things are done, which obviously is very important in programming, I like to also talk about why things happen that way. And this is something we do a lot at RealPython. So even if some of the topics I'll discuss today are topics you have met before, I'm fairly sure you'll get to understand them at a deeper level after today. And a reminder, that's what the questions are for. Often, the best discussions come from questions that you may want to ask. So if you're an absolute beginner, you're in the right place. If you've done a bit of Python, you're in the right place. If you're an expert in Python, you're more than welcome to stay for the ride, but you'll find that this is aimed for beginners. We'll be working on a project, and this is a hands-on project. There we go. I did promise you I'm going to be looking at the chat. I've seen a question there. Can we get the recording? Yes, this is being recorded. In fact, there it says workshop is being streamed live and recorded. So the recording is available now, depending on where you are. The person asking me is on LinkedIn, so I think LinkedIn keeps the recording on the platform. If we have your email address, those of you who have registered for this on Zoom, we will send you an email with the link. If everything else fails, contact us at RealPython and we'll show you where the videos are. Later in the session, I'm also going to give you a URL with all the resources, including a link to the recording of the session. So yes, this is being recorded. You will all get the recording one way or another. So this is a project. We're going to be working on a project. It's a hands-on project. Now, you're more than welcome to treat this as watching a Netflix show. You know, get your drink, your snacks. That's perfectly fine. But the best way to do this workshop is to open up your Python editor and code along with me. I'll progress at a pace to make sure that you can keep up. Sometimes you get these workshops where you're like, oh, no, I can't keep up. If that happens, let me know in the chat or let me know. But I'll make sure I'll go at a pace where we can all you can all catch up. And if you don't, let me know, as I said. So if you can code along with me, that's great. If something doesn't work, let me know. Ask a question, raise your hand on Zoom or ask in the chat wherever you are, and we'll make sure to all move along at the right pace. We're going to be together for about 60 to 90 minutes. Now, we're going to work on a project that actually does something useful at the end. We'll see this is an arcade style video game, so it's going to be fun to write and perhaps play as well. This means we're going to cover, yes, someone said, sorry to interrupt, I have zero idea of Python. Am I suitable for this workshop? Yes. You are the target audience. If you've never done any Python before, you're perfectly fine here. As long as you have somewhere to code in Python. If you don't, let me know. I'll send you somewhere quickly. But yeah, you don't need to know anything about Python. Um, we're going to be covering quite a few concepts, of course, in this workshop. Now, 60 to 90 minutes, we can't cover everything in detail. So, with all of the topics we'll be covering today, if you want to take the next steps after this workshop, I'll share with you a list of resources that I've compiled for you for every topic we're going to be discussing. You'll be able to, if you want, dive deeper. So rather than doing it now, I'll do that throughout the session and then again at the end of the session, of course. So some topics, I'll introduce them at the level we need for this session, but then you can always go deeper later on. So I'll share with you resources for you to have. Good. Let me have a look at, that's all I wanted to say. Roughly, the session will be, I'll spend about 50 to 60 minutes on the workshop. Then I'll have a dedicated Q&A at the end. But this is really important. You do not need to wait until the end to ask questions. This is not one of those conference talks where, or one of those sessions where you have to be quiet till the end and then only ask, there's 2 minutes of questions at the end. I'll leave enough time for questions at the end, but you can ask at any point you want. Don't worry, you won't interrupt my flow. Ask at any point you can. I'll keep an eye on all the chats. I'll keep an eye on Zoom in case anyone on Zoom wants to raise their hand and interrupt as much as you want. In some ways, it's good for you to have a break from my voice from time to time. So if you've heard enough of my voice, ask a question and someone else will come in if you're on Zoom. If you're on streaming, you'll have to ask via text. Okay, let's make a start. Let me go to my Python editor. If at any point the link I've given you earlier, realpython.com/live, is there in the corner. If at any point you're watching the stream and you want to join on Zoom, you can do it at any point you want. Okay, so let me check there are no questions I've missed on the chats. Brilliant. I've got 2 screens in front of me. I feel like I need 3 screens for this because I've got the various chats on one side and lots of other things. The screen I'm sharing with you. In any case, I'll make do with 2 screens for now. We're going to be working on a project. Let me first, this is not your typical Python 101 project, and I'll show you why in a bit. Some of you may have joined, we had a similar workshop last week, and that was a classic first project to work on. We have another workshop next week, which is yet a different project. Today's one is a bit different, and let me show you what it looks like. Let me run this code. There we go. And we are going to write. Now, it's an arcade style video game, but the graphics are not going to win us any awards. We're going to keep it really simple. Why? Because we're going to write this game from scratch in about 60 to 90 minutes. So we can't do fancy graphics, let's keep our expectations low in terms of what the game is going to look like, but the coding of it is going to be fun. So the idea is you have the green cannon there ready to shoot cannons. That's the red one you can see there. And then there's a target. And the aim of the game, it's a very simple game, right? In terms of playing it. We can move the cannon wherever we want. And when you're ready, you hit space. Oh no, I've missed. I get a second shot. Let's go a bit closer, a bit further up. Yay, there you go. You've seen that. I'm quite good at this game, as you can see. So once you hit the target, you go on. So it's a nice and simple game. A few reminders before we start. The aim of this workshop is not to write a fancy game. It's to learn Python as we go along. So that's why the game looks nice and simple. Also, we are going to be using a particular tool in Python. That's just a tool. We're going to be using a module that allows you to draw graphics on the screen. That's not the main point of the session. The main point of the session is to look at the fundamentals of Python. So as we go along, I'll be sort of highlighting this is something you don't need to worry about too much. It's specific about how we're creating graphics on the screen. Or this is something that is really important in Python, and it doesn't matter what the project is, we really need to understand it. So I'll make sure I'll let you know either way. Someone asked me, can I code on PyDroid 3? I do not know is the answer to my question. I don't have all the details. Give it a go. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I'm not too familiar with the platform. Okay, let us make a start. Um, uh, someone on uh, Someone on Zoom is asking me, will this cover OOP or asynchronous? So asynchronous is an advanced topic. No, this is a beginner's topic. OOP, which stands for those who are object-oriented programming, we are not going to be covering object-oriented programming as a subject. We are going to be using it because Python always uses it, but we're not going to cover the basics of OOP. So this is a more beginner-friendly project than OOP or asynchronous coding, which is much more advanced. Okay, let us make a start. Um, so where do we start? Let me move some screens around. Good, good, good. We always start with a blank screen. Now, I did mention, in fact, there we go. Yeah, that's the one I want. Python is a programming language. It comes with lots of tools, and we're going to see lots of these tools, right? Those of you who've done a bit of Python, often you start with things like print, the most boring, but also the quite useful command. So if you've done some Python before, you definitely have seen things like print and other things, etc. But not everything comes straight out of the box in Python. Python has what's called a huge ecosystem, lots of what we call modules. I'll tell you what modules are in a bit, that allow you to do everything. If you want to do web development, if you want to do data analysis, if you want to do science, if you want to do finance, anything you want, there's going to be a module for you. The one we're going to use today is a rather strangely named one called Turtle, like the animal. I don't know why they call it Turtle, right? It's a very simple graphics package. And the way we fetch these modules, think of it as a folder with lots of stuff inside. And it's like, oh, I need this information in my program. So we import, in this case, import Turtle. Yes, recording will be shared. Thank you. Someone answered a question there on Zoom. So brilliant. By the way, if you're not seeing the comments, depending on where you are, there are different chats, right? So you may not see the comments. That's why I'll read them out, or the questions when I answer them. So all we've done so far is we went to the library, if you like, and we brought in a set, a folder called Turtle that has lots of useful stuff inside. So from now on, I can use it. Now, Turtle is not important in Python. So if after today you forget everything to do with Turtle, it doesn't matter. But we're going to use it as a tool to draw graphics in a nice and easy way. And the way this module works, so I'm going to go a bit quickly. Yes, Turtle is available by default in Python. So if you've installed Python on your computer, this is one of the many modules that comes with Python. So that should work. As long as you have Python on your computer, import Turtle should work. And this is where we're going to start to understand how Python works. We're going to start creating things that we need in our program. We call these objects. Someone mentioned object-oriented programming, right? Everything is an object in Python, but don't worry what an object is. It's a thing. And I can give it any name I want. So the first thing I want to create is a screen. Now, there's nothing special about the word screen. I could call this anything I want, and I'll prove it in a second. But if I want to create something, I want to say, what do I want this label screen to be equal to? And this is something we'll see a lot in Python. Something equals, and after the equals, this is where I want to create this thing that I need, this object. In this case, I want to fetch something. Remember the folder we brought in, the module we brought in. If I want to fetch something from inside it, I can use its name, open this folder. That's what the dot is doing. And you can see that my editor here gave me lots of useful things. I want the second one, right? And if it doesn't appear, start typing it in. Whatever platform you're using, it's probably going to give you this autocomplete. A few things we'll note. If you're brand new to Python, the punctuation, the syntax is a bit weird, right? The dot is not where you expect it in English, right? So we'll see what the dot is. In this case, it means that this command is inside the Turtle module. And then you can see these parentheses at the end, these round brackets or whatever you want to call them. There's nothing inside, but they're really important. This is what's telling Python, do this command now. So it's going to create a screen. Not very exciting, right? Let's see what else we can do with it, and then we're going to run the code in a bit. Um, I can set up my screen. Notice I've used the name screen. That's up to you. You can call it whatever you want, right? And then the dot again, which means what can my screen do? And one of the things it can do is setup. Again, setup is specific to the turtle module, but this format of doing dot something, I'll come back to it in a few minutes. It's really important in coding. What setup does is it allows us to choose how wide and high I want my screen to be. Let's try this out. Now, whenever we're dealing with graphics in Python and in other programming, we need to be careful because when we run a program, once the program finishes, Python will tidy everything up. So we want something in here to tell the program, look, you haven't finished yet. And in the turtle module, what we always put at the end is turtle.done. Once again, there's the parentheses there. All this does is when the program reaches the end, it will actually wait. Why? Because we're going to be seeing something on the screen. We want that to appear there so that we can see what's happening, and then we decide when we want to close it. So turtle.done is one of those weird things. Again, this is only relevant when we're dealing with graphics, so I'm going to go quickly through it. Okay, let me run this code and see what happens. And still thinking about it. Not that one. There we go. Let me run again. My computer decided to, yeah, that's fine. I'll come and show you this later. Why did it go there? Let's go back to my editor there. You've probably got it before I did. If you've run this, you've probably seen a window appear. How exciting is that? We've managed to draw a window on the screen. It will get more exciting, don't worry. This is all we've done. We've created a screen, and we've decided how many pixels wide we wanted and how many pixels high we wanted. Okay, not very exciting. Let's move on. So what else do I need? I've created the screen. Now, I need stuff on my screen. The stuff, remember I've showed you the program. There are three things I need. I need the cannon, this little arrow, which is going to shoot the cannonball, and I need the target. So let's start by creating the cannon. Once again, you need to give it a name, any name you want. Laser shooter, if you like, whatever you want to call it. Notice how it's currently underlined in red. And if I run this program, let me run this program. We know what underlined in red means, right? Every teacher has done that in the past. And Python does the same thing. It says, on line 6, name cannon is not defined. It's telling me I have no idea what this word means. With import and turtle, it knew what it means. Screen, it knew what it means. The screen with a small s, and notice how I've used the same word here. You may recall me saying that this could be anything you want. You can call this your name. This cannot. This is a command in Python. You can use the same. I'm using the same word here just for simplicity. But this doesn't have to be the same word. This could be anything you want. At the moment, canon doesn't exist. I need to. That's where the equals comes in. The equals means, hey, Python, it's okay. I'm going to tell you what canon is. And you're going to see the pattern from the turtle module, this folder we brought in. This time I want to create a turtle object. Why is it called turtle? You can go and look it up, right? This is historical. This comes from before Python's days. This easy graphics tool that imagines turtles moving around. It doesn't matter. So now let's run the code. And there we go. Oops, keeps swapping there. Apologies for that. I'll fix it in a second. That is, and I can hear you think it doesn't look like a turtle. It doesn't matter. If any of you are curious and you want to make it look like a turtle, let me know and I'll tell you. But we don't need it here, right? Because we're going to be writing a shooting game here, so we don't need turtles. So that's what the turtle is. Notice it's created in the middle of the screen. It's facing to the right. This is something we're going to be able to move around and play with. For example, let me close this window. Notice the similarity there. On line 3 and on line 6, I've created two objects, as we call them in Python, two things. One is a screen, one is a turtle. And now I can use them. For example, I can say, what else can my cannon do? Now it knows what cannon is, right? Because on line 6 I said cannon is a turtle. So when I put a dot here, Python says, since cannon is a turtle, what stuff can I do with it? And you can see there are lots of commands there. This is specific about drawing on the screen. So don't worry, this is not something you need to memorize, right? If you ever want to draw something on the screen like I'm doing here using the turtle module, you will learn these things. But this is not specific about Python in general. I want to change its shape. So you can see one thing is shape there. And there aren't many shapes available, but one of them that I'm going to use is triangle. Notice I didn't just write triangle here. I had to put it in quotation marks. Um, I'll tell you what these quotation marks are in a bit. Now, I asked for this, right? Someone asked me, how do I make it look like a turtle? And instead of triangle here, all you have to do is write turtle, if you want it to look like a turtle. So I'm going to stick with triangle there. Notice these are all lowercase, right? We don't like uppercase much in Python, but we've used it in a couple of places. I'll tell you a bit more later on, but this is not important for the time being. So let me run the code now. And I did tell you I'm going to go slowly. I will speed up after a bit, right? So we're not going to be going at this pace all the while, but I'm starting slowly to make sure you all can follow. And now you can see that it looks like a triangle. If you put turtle there, it's going to look like a turtle. There are a few other shapes, but not many. So don't try don't try random shapes. It will not work. Triangle is one we're using. Turtle is one you asked me. We'll use a couple more later on. Good. Let's go a bit quicker. What else can we do? We can change the color. And once again, you can see the pattern here. There's always the name we've chosen for our object, cannon, dot. One of the commands that is, what can Python do with this turtle object? It can change the shape. It can change the color. Parentheses, can you see the pattern there? And we don't always put the same thing in parentheses. For example, setup needed two numbers separated by a comma. Shape needed this thing in quotation marks, which I'll tell you about in a bit. Color also needs something in quotation marks, green. You can run the code. I'll run it in a bit. Let me add one more. One other thing I want to do, set position. No prizes for guessing what this does. Yes, thank you. Someone asked questions on Zoom and someone answered them. Brilliant. I like that. Uh, um, set position will allow me to set the position of my turtle. Now, I would like my cannon to be on the left-hand side of the screen. The middle is 0, 0. And remember that the width of my screen is 600 pixels and the height is 800. So let me go, if I want to go to the left of the center, I need to go minus, let's say minus 50. And let's say I want to start in the middle, height-wise. Let's see what's going to happen now. And okay, we've got some issues to deal with, but you can see that the cannon has now shifted 150 pixels to the left because it's minus, and it didn't go up or down because it's 0. Now, the turtle module is a drawing program. So whenever I move these turtles, it's going to draw a line. Sometimes it is great if you want to draw stuff. Sometimes it's annoying. In our case, we don't care about these lines. So before the order of commands is important in coding, right? It depends what we do. Before I set the position of the cannon, I want to raise the pen. This is a drawing program, right? So pen up means, look, don't draw any lines. When you move around, just don't draw lines. It's like when you raise the pen from the paper, right? Good. Um, um, yes, if you are using Jupyter Notebook. Jupyter Notebook is not meant for turtle drawings. If you can not use Jupyter, if you're using Jupyter, probably have some other environment. Jupyter Notebook and the turtle module, there is a way of working it, right? But some of the commands won't work. Looking at some of the questions there. When we're dealing with graphics, the way the turtle module works is that it's using it's communicating with the windowing system of your operating system, the one that creates windows, etc. So when you're using certain packages like Jupyter, it might or might not like it. Good, good, good. I can see perfect. Someone is sharing solutions there. Okay, let's speed up a bit. One other thing I'm going to do, I want the cannon to be pointing at 45 degrees, right? Because when we shoot, you remember I've shown you in the beginning, when we shoot the arrow, I wanted to shoot at sort of at an angle. So once again, you'll get the idea right here. There are lots of commands. There's a fancy name for these, but let's call them commands. These are all specific for the turtle module. So if you're doing something else in Python, you don't care about color, pen upset position. So I'm going to go quickly. 45 degrees. Okay. And there we go. So now I've got my Canon, 150 pixels from the middle, shape the arrow green, pointing at 45 degrees. Of course, you can do whatever you want, right? If you want to customize this in whichever way you want, you get the idea. Okay, so far, let me have a look. I think I've got two chats in front of me. It seems like on Zoom, people are answering others. That's great. I like that. No raised hands on Zoom, and on other places, I think I've answered all the questions there. Okay. Um, let us, before I move on, I promised you I'm going to tell you a bit about these quotation marks, but more importantly, so this is something that's specific to rather general to all of Python. Whatever you're doing in Python, you will always create objects. For example, here we've created a screen and gave it the name screen. A reminder, you could have called this anything you want. Ideally, give it a name that's descriptive, but you can call whatever you put before the equals as anything you want. Then we created another object here, a turtle, and a screen you can use setup on it, a turtle object, you can use all of these things. Let's have a look at some other objects that are common in Python. I'm going to open another environment here. Don't worry if you can't open this up on your, this is not important, right? So this is the part where if you want, you can just watch. This is unrelated to the code. And this is what we call an interactive environment. That's what the three arrows show. And I'm going to create two more objects. Person equals James. Let me spell it properly. Notice the similarities. I've got something equals. The something is anything you want, right? There's nothing special about person. You can name this anything you want. There are some rules, like you can't have spaces, you can't have punctuation marks, but if you keep it nice and simple, you can call it anything you want. After the equals, I've done something a bit different this time. I've put the quotation marks James. This is, in Python, anything inside quotation marks, double or single, it doesn't matter, is what we call a string. That's short for a string of characters. So this is another type of object. It's not a screen or a turtle. This is simply a string of characters, and it's something we use all the time in Python. In fact, that's what we've done here. Triangle, all we're saying is we're giving a string of characters that then shape will take care of. I'll come to questions in a bit, right? So I've seen your questions come in. I'll progress a bit more, and I'll pause every so often and ask questions. So person is now the thing I put before the equals. Here's how to think of it. Imagine it's a label you're sticking on a box. So whatever is after the equals is the object you're putting inside the box. Whatever you put before the equals is the label you stick on the box so that you can find it later on. That's why you label boxes, right? So that you know what's inside. That's what screen is. That's what canon is. That's what person is. And in this case, Python knows that person is this object, which is a string of characters. What can a string of characters do? So I'm going to put a dot there, and you can see that I've got different things there. There isn't setup or shape or color. Why? Because person is now something else. So the things I can do with it, for example, one of them is upper. It changes it to uppercase. Let me show you one other example before returning to the game. Let me create another. Again, numbers, there's nothing special about it. This is a name I came up with. But now I'm going to use the square brackets. The type of brackets we use in Python is really important. So far, I've been using the parentheses, the round type. Here, I want to use the square brackets. And all I'm going to do is put some numbers separated by commas. Doesn't matter what the numbers are. This is what we call a list. We're not going to be using strings and lists much today, but it's something you will use a lot in Python in general. So now I've created another type of object. It's not a turtle, it's not a screen, it's not a string, it's a list. What I put on the right-hand side, the type of the data can change. and they all have different properties. For example, numbers, which is now a list, if I press dot, there are now different things I could do. For example, one of them is append. I want to append 100 to the list. So when I show the list now, I've added a number to the list. Depending on what type of data it is, we can do different things with them. And that's what the dot does. We'll be using it a lot today. The dot means see what type of data this object is. It's a list in this case. Therefore, one of the things Python knows how to do with lists is to append numbers. If a person is a string, one of the things Python knows how to do with strings is to make it uppercase. In our case, let me keep it there for now. We're using the screen, we're not going to be using much, but we're going to be doing lots of stuff with the turtle object. And in this case, we can change the shape, change the color, raise the pen up, set position, set heading, and lots of other things. Okay, I've got a question there. I'll read it out. I'm trying to understand how the turtle module works in Python. I see we're using shapes and moving them, but I don't understand how the turtle knows what to do and how it draws on the screen. Can you explain how it works step by step? Yeah, I can. So what we're doing here is when we create the turtle object, the turtle module says, look, I've got some defaults. Where am I going to place this object? In the middle of the screen. I need to give it some shape. It makes it like a small arrow. If you remove this line, canon.shape triangle, you'll see what it is. And it needs to be facing somewhere. So it starts by making it face right. Then it's up to you to make changes. So let me, in fact, this is a good example. Let me highlight lines 7 to 11. I want to remove them, but I'm too lazy. I don't want to delete them because if I delete them, I have to go and type them again. What I'm going to do is, and this works on almost every platform, if you're on a Mac, command question mark. If you're on a Windows, control question mark. And you'll notice that a hash symbol was added in front of every line. And what this means is that Python will ignore this line. And you might say, what's the point? The point is because now it's as though those lines were in there. So all I'm doing so far is creating the turtle. And when I run the code, where is it? My computer is being a bit slow today. There we go. It places a turtle in the middle of the screen, makes it a black arrow facing to the right. Then I can start giving it a shape. And by the way, I'm using the same shortcut now, right? So I'm command question mark or control question mark. Giving it color, raising the pen up. So this is how I'm controlling what the turtle is doing. Set position means take it from the middle and shift it somewhere else on the screen. Set heading means turn it around. We haven't moved it yet, right? Or rather, we have moved it by putting it in a certain position. Soon, we're going to make things move on the screen as well. Hopefully, Mohammed, that explained, let me know if, and it will make more sense as we move on as well, but let me know if that did not help. Okay. Let's move on. I am actually going to take a break from talking because I'm going to give you a small exercise. You should be able to do this. I'll give you a couple of minutes. I would like you, we've created the cannon. I would like you to create the target. You may recall, for those of you who are in the beginning, we have the cannon, and then on the right-hand side of the screen, we're going to have a target. Clue, it's going to be the shape of a circle. And we want to place it on the right-hand side of the screen. It doesn't matter where for now, right? So pick anywhere on the right-hand side of the screen. Let me give you a couple of minutes. I'll be quiet for a bit. Could you try to create a target? I'll give you some clues as we go along, but I'll start with a few clues. I'd like you to create a target. You can call it anything you want, such as target, but it doesn't have to be. And I want it to be, looks like a circle instead of a triangle. Pick whatever color you want. Stick with simple colors, right, for now, just keep it simple. And I want it to be on the right-hand side of the screen. I'll pause for a bit. We'll go for about 2 minutes, right? I want to keep it going, so it shouldn't be too difficult. But if you find it difficult, don't worry, because that's what we're here for. So don't worry either way. So for those who perhaps are watching and not listening, I'll write a comment. Create a target somewhere on the right hand side of the screen. So by default, the question there is you can ignore me talking, right? If you're coding, but if you want to, someone asked me, what does PenUp do? This is a drawing program. So without PenUp, every time you move the turtle, it will draw a line. Sometimes you want that. You want to draw a line wherever it goes. Sometimes that's annoying. So in this case, before I move the turtle, I raise the pen up so that the object moves but doesn't draw a line. Otherwise, it's going to have lines everywhere, and soon we're going to be moving these things all the while. We don't want to leave a trace, a line wherever it's doing. So that's what pen up does. However, here's another hint. If you want to know what a command does with these, simply remove it. A reminder, you can put a hash symbol in front of it, run your code, and then you can compare before and after. That's a good technique. It doesn't always work, right? Because sometimes if you remove a line, you might get an error. But in this case, you can remove these lines, any one you want, more or less, and you can see what it does by putting it in and then back out, or rather taking it out and then putting it back in. Good. Okay, let's go for another half a minute. In fact, I'll start writing things slowly and then so I'll write a few lines and then I'll narrate them in a second to give those of you who are still coding some time to code. Okay, let me stop there for now. Okay, so what do I need? I need another object. What type of object do I need? When I'm using the turtle module, I often want to use these turtle with an uppercase T. A reminder, turtle with a lowercase t. These things matter in Python, right? It's a bit weird. Why do I have turtle twice there? The one with the lowercase t is the name of the module. This is the folder we brought with lots of commands inside. The dot is opening that folder, and within it, there's a command also called turtle, but this one is with an uppercase t. And this is the one that, as long as I have the parentheses, will create this turtle object. So uppercase T turtle with the parentheses creates the object. But this command is not lying around anywhere in our program. It's inside the turtle folder, if you like, the turtle module. That's why I need to say turtle lowercase t dot turtle uppercase t. So apologies. I'm creating another one. I can have as many as I want, right? But this time I'm going to call it target. Again, you can call this anything you want. One thing you cannot do is to reuse names you've used already. So I can't call this cannon. First of all, it doesn't make sense, but I cannot have the same label used for different things in Python. I'm changing its shape to circle this time, color to blue, pen up, and set position. Now, let's introduce something new here. If you've done this, you might have put in set position, put some numbers in there. If you wanted to be on the right-hand side, the first number, which is the horizontal, is going to be a plus number, a positive number. But I want to make this a bit more fun. I want the target to be in a random position on the screen. Still on the right-hand side, but every time I want it to be in a different random position. So I would like here to put in two numbers, but I want the program to pick them out of a hat, if you like, pick a number at random. Can Python do this? The answer is almost always yes, right? But again, these are not commands that are lying around in Python for us ready to use, like, for example, import. But there is another module, just like the turtle one is there to draw things on the screen. There is another one, which I'm going to import now, called random. Again, this is a module, think of it as a folder with lots of useful stuff inside. And as you can imagine, it's got stuff to do with creating random things. Now, the following line, you can keep writing it on the same line, but to make it a bit neater, I'm going to actually hit enter. Can you see I'm in between the parentheses? So this means I'm going to split it over multiple lines. You don't have to if you don't want to. It just makes it easier for you to see. So what's the first number? I want Python to pick a random number for me. Now, where are all the tools to use all the tools I need for random stuff? They're inside the random module. Remember the one, let me get rid of that, the one we've just imported. This is the folder, right? I want to open the folder and I'm going to use a command called randint. Int stands for integer, which is a whole number. So this creates a random integer. And once again, you can see the pattern, right? Lots of things have parentheses after them. And often, not always, sometimes there's nothing in the parentheses, but often we put something in the parentheses. And in this case, what is the range of numbers? I want it to be, for example, between 50 and 250. Remember, I want this to, this is the horizontal, right? The first number is the horizontal. I want it to be on the right-hand side. 0 is the middle, so 50 means a bit further to the right. And why 250? My screen is 600 wide. That means it's 300 on one side, 300 on the other side. So 250 is just a bit short from the edge. That's the x, the horizontal. Now I need to pick a random number for y as well. So once again, random.randint. And now up and down, I could go from, I don't know, minus 200 to 200. My screen is 800 pixels. So it goes from minus 400 to 400. Let's say we want to have a small window. Good. So far, so good. Yeah, sorry, we've got some spam in one of the chats. If you're on Facebook, you've got spam there, ignore it. If you're used to it, nothing much we can do about it. It's a real world. Let's see whether we can run this. I'm going to close that there. Okay, let's run the code. And I now have, I don't know why the window is big there. I'm running some software at the back because of running the streaming, and I think it's affecting, there we go. It's affecting my computer a bit. So now I have the cannon, which is always in the same place because I've put minus 150 and 0 for the cannon. But the target is now going to be in some random position between somewhere here and somewhere there, because it's 50 and 250, and between minus 200 and 200, roughly there and there. So every time I run this, you can try it out, right? I won't keep running it, but you can close it and run it again and again and again. You'll see that the target will be in a different position every time. Yeah, by the way, I just mentioned someone else said they have to pop out. This session is being recorded, so if you need to pop out from the session and then come back, or maybe you have to leave early, we will share with you the recordings in one way or another. So the session is being recorded. Okay, so far so good. Let me see whether I'll give you some time to catch up, see whether there are any more questions. What's next? We've got the cannon ready to shoot. We've got the target somewhere on the other side of the screen. We need the cannonball. Well, there's no point having a cannon without a ball in, or whatever you want to call it, right? So I need to now create yet another object. Now, you don't need to do what I'm doing next, also because you're using a different editor. Because this code is going to get long, I'm going to split my screen into two here, just to make life easier for you. So what do I want there? Uh, oh, what's happened there? Twos. I use this every day. Oh, I think my editor has changed something there. That's fine. Let's there you go. That's what I want to do. Split right. I'm going to split my screen into two. It's the same file, the same code. What I'm going to do is, as I scroll further down, I'm going to write here on the right-hand side. Some of you may be like, oh, I want to see what's at the top of your code. So on the left, I'll leave the top of the code. On the right, I'll scroll down. So this is the same code, right? You'll see that when I add lines, there's going to go on both of them. But as I start scrolling out, you'll be able to see the top of my code. You don't have to do any of this. So we've created a cannon. We've created a target. Let's create a cannonball. What's a good name for this? Cannonball, or I'm lazy, so I'm going to simply call it ball. Good. We know how this works now from the turtle module. I want to create a turtle, and if I can spell it correctly, it's even better. Um, Good. What do I want to do here? I want to give it a shape. Let me quickly check. Question there. When you are running, the initial position is what is in set position. But okay, a good question. Someone asked me there, when you are running it, the initial position is what is the set position. So you are seeing the cannon run there. The person mentioned, when I run it, I actually see things moving in that place. Mine is doing that as well. The thing is that I'm swapping to my window later on. So by the time I've swapped to my window, the movement has already happened. We will fix that, don't worry. So if when you run yours, you see all the turtles appear in the middle and then they sort of move from the middle, right? That's what mine is doing as well. It's just that mine is doing it behind the scenes for whatever reason. Um, Hopefully that answers your question, but we will solve that problem in a bit. Okay, let's speed a bit because it doesn't seem like we have much here, but we still need a game. So I'll press move on. Let's make this a circle, and I'm also going to make it a bit smaller. And the way I can do this is using turtle size. Now, turtle size, 1 is the normal size. zero point 0.5 means I want half of it. So um, let me, there we go. There's a slight problem with the streaming there. Hopefully, those who are streaming, oh, we may have lost those people who are streaming. Hopefully, we haven't. I'll carry on, however. It's being recorded anyway, so. Um, Technology, don't we love it when it works? Um, okay, I'll move on. My computer is not liking something here. Apologies for that. Okay, I I will I will stop that and I'll carry on there. Um, I'll check again in a second. I think we may have lost, for some reason, the people who are streaming with us. But those on Zoom are still there, I know. So I'll carry on anyway, and then we'll share the recording. Um, okay, that means I have to move my screens again. Apologies for that. So, in fact, you can carry on creating this ball while I set everything up again. What do we want to do with the ball? We want to give it some color. We've made it smaller, so half the size of the normal dot. We want to change its color. You can pick any color you want. There are some interesting colors there, by the way. Fire brick is like a dark red. You can pick red if you want, right? I'm just going to go for something a bit different. Once again, we've done this before. I want to raise the pen up so it doesn't draw anything. And I want to set its position. Now, here's a question. Where do I want to place the ball? This is the cannonball, right? It should be where the cannon is. Um, Someone gave me an error there. Turtle objects are not to be turtle size. It could be depending on the platform you're working on. If turtle size doesn't work, just leave it out. All that happens is that the cannonball will be a bit larger. It's simpler. And then we can try to fix it at the end if we have time. Just remove the line if that doesn't work. It's not important. Where do I want the ball to be? I want it to be exactly the same place as the cannon. So I could put in the same numbers, minus 150, 0. But we want to think ahead when we're coding, right? We want to make life easy, not just now, but later on. What's going to happen? The cannon is going to be moving. You've seen me show the game in the beginning. If you were there, I'm going to be moving the cannon left, right, up, and down. I want the ball to be wherever the cannon is, and maybe I want to change that. So I could put in minus 150, 0, but even simpler, I can say, take the cannon and find its position. So once again, cannon is the label for the turtle object I created there. I'm not using set position here. I'm using position, which means give me its current position. And whatever Python gives me there, I'm feeding it directly to ball.setPosition. You see how I'm communicating between the cannon and the ball. If you have a yellow warning there, ignore it. It will still work just as fine. Okay, so on the left-hand side, I'm going to leave the top of the code. On the right-hand side, I'm going to be scrolling. Let me run the code, and then I'll check on those on the stream. Um, uh, Unfortunately, I can't easily fix it there. So there you can see that the cannonball is now wherever the cannon is. The ball is wherever the cannon is. Okay, let me um, right. I think those on streaming, something seems to have happened there. I'm not sure what happened there. Um, Let me see. Those of you on, no, it seems like you're still seeing it, right? Those of you, if someone in the chat, someone who's either on YouTube or on LinkedIn or on Facebook, my dashboard is telling me there's something wrong with the streaming, but I can still see comments there. So if someone can tell me that you can still see my screen, if you're on LinkedIn or YouTube or Facebook, that means I can calmly carry on without worrying about having lost some of you who can't finish this game. Someone said, "Can I add a few lines?" Perfect. Yes. The some platforms have. Thank you. You see on LinkedIn, and you can see my screen as well, I assume, because my dashboard shows me that you can't see my screen. But if you can see my screen, brilliant, brilliant. Thank you, Tapan. Okay, good. Let's speed through. So then now I know that the stream is working. Apologies for the delay. I was worried we've lost some people there. We had a few hundred people watching. I'm glad you're still there. Okay, now we've gone a long way here and we've covered some Python basics, but what we've really done so far is a bit repetitive. Now we're going to get to the fun of it because what do I want to do now? I want to move the ball. We're going to do this bit by bit. Um, in a game, animation, whatever you want, you're going to have lots of things on the screen. In this case, we have three things, right? It's nice and simple: the cannon, the ball, and the target. In our game, only one thing will move at a time, but in most games, you have lots of things moving at the same time. So I need to figure out how to deal with this. And the way animations work, if you've done any of those animations where you draw something on a page and then you change it slightly and then you know the flip book animation, that's exactly how animations work. We have lots of frames and we want to make a small change between one frame of the game and the next one. So we need to repeat stuff. We need to give instructions. What should you do in every frame of the game? In this case, for example, we want to move the ball, but we want to do it lots of times for every frame of the game. And therefore, we need to write some code that we want to repeat. And repeating stuff in Python is something that happens all the time, and we have lots of tools to repeat. We're going to look at one of them. And this is, I'm going to write this line, it's going to look weird. I'm going to write while true. And this is what we call a while loop, because there are other loops. It's a loop because it's going to repeat. It's a while loop because it starts with the word while. There are other loops like the for loop. Now, there's quite a few things happening here. So the while loop works as follows. It's going to look at what comes after it. If it is true, and in this case, I actually typed in true. Today, we're going to stick with this to keep it simple. But when you learn more about the while loop, you'll see that you can do a few more things in there. I'll share with you resources for you to explore all of these topics, including the while loop. The while loop is going to look at this. If it is true, it's going to repeat all the lines that come after the colon. Notice I've put a colon there. Again, the colon is a punctuation mark we'll see a lot in Python. And we'll see it more today as well. Notice what's going to happen when I hit enter. There's that gap, that indent. That is deliberate, so don't remove it. I'll tell you what it is in a bit. And what I want to do here is I want to move the ball. Now, there are a number of ways of moving the ball. I'm going to use the one that is less straightforward, but I have a reason for it. Here it is. Ball is the name I've given my ball turtle. And one of the things I can do is to set the X position. So I'm going to change, set position changes the X and the Y. Now I'm going to do them separately. I'm only going to change the horizontal position. And what do I want it to be? I want to move the ball slightly to the right or slightly to the left. I'll tell you how we're going to decide in a bit. So I'm going to say, I would like the new position to be the current X position. X score stands for X coordinate. So set X moves the ball horizontally. X is the horizontal, right? X coordinate simply tells me where the ball is along the horizontal. So I'm saying take the current position of the ball and change it by 10 pixels, for example. We'll make this a bit nicer in a bit, right? And this means that, in fact, I'm going to run my code now. Yeah, my computer is taking a bit of let me try again. There we go. Can you see the ball there? You probably see it better on your screen, right? You could see the ball moving sideways. Why? Because while true says, keep repeating the following lines forever, because this is always going to be true. So this is going to keep going on forever. It's going to take the current ball position. In the beginning, it's going to be minus 150, right? Because that's where it's starting. Add 10 to it and set the ball to that position. Then it's going to repeat again. But the next time, the ball's new position is now shifted. Add 10 to it. And we keep adding 10. Now, if this is going too fast, in fact, 10 is not a good number, right? Let's do something more clever. Rather than changing number there, let us create yet another label. So I'm going to go to the beginning of my code. A reminder, you can scroll to the top of your code, right? The left-hand side shows the beginning of my code. And I'm going to say, I'm going to create ball x velocity. You can call it whatever you want, right? But it's good to use descriptive names, names that show you what they are. And now, depending on what computer you're on, this number will have to change, right? So let me start with 1. But for some of you, 1 may be too fast. So go for 0.5 or 0.1. Change this number to suit your needs. So this is my ball's x velocity. But now, in the while loop where I said ball.setx ball x score plus, I don't want 10 anymore. I want to say ball x velocity. Why? Because ball x velocity, notice I've used underscores there. This is the only punctuation mark you can use when you create these names, these labels. You can't put spaces, you can't put dashes, you can't put anything else. Underscore is the only thing you can do instead of a space. So that's why I've put underscores there. You don't have to put them in, right? If you don't like underscores, just squash everything together. Ball x velocity is now a label to the number. So now, if I want to increase the speed, all I have to do is change this to 2 or to 3. And every time it's going to move by a larger number. I'm going to stick with 1. And there you go. Can you see that my ball is now moving? If for you it's too fast, decrease it to 0.1 or whatever. Play with that number. Good. But that's only moving horizontally. I also want to move it vertically. And in fact, every time I want to move it both vertically and velocity. Let's keep it velocity. It doesn't matter, right? I could make spelling mistakes there because this is up to me to create it, but it's good not to make spelling mistakes. So now, what's the other thing I want to repeat? Ball dot set y, up and down, to wherever the ball is now, so y coordinate, plus the ball's y velocity. So every time now I'm going to move the ball slightly horizontally and slightly vertically. And when you do both of those, you can see that the ball is now moving at 45 degrees. We want it to fall down as well, right? So we'll do that next. We're almost on the hour. We're almost there. It might seem like there's lots to go, but we've actually done all the hard work. We'll go a bit quicker now. Before I do that, you may notice, let me put a slightly larger number here. Let me go for 7 and 7. You don't have to do this, right? But I'll show you why in a bit. Let me run this. Can you see that the ball is like wobbling? Why? Because it's moving horizontally by 7 and then up. It's like moving in a ladder instead of smoothly. We can fix that. Now, I'm going to keep this really quick because it's not really important, right, for what we're doing. But what we want to do is when we created the screen, you may recall we said screen equals turtle.screen. We created the size. I'm going to add a rather strange command, tracer. And within the parentheses, I'm going to put 0. This means we're telling the turtle module when you need to move the turtles around, don't display it on the screen every single time. Wait until I tell you to display it on the screen. This means that when I move X and Y, it won't show me moving X and Y. It will just not show me anything until, and this is where I'm going to go in the while loop, notice that all of these lines have this indent. I sort of didn't tell you what the indent is, but I'll tell you in a bit. Let's keep it for now. We want screen.update, which means now at the end of each time you loop this, I want you to update the display, update the screen. And this means that every time we run the code in this while loop, this is one frame of the animation. We're going to do lots of stuff. At the moment, we're doing two things. At the end of the frame, we're saying, now I want you to update the screen. So do everything in the background and update the screen now. Um, Good. Someone a few minutes ago said you can't hear me on Zoom. Um, uh, I think it might have been an issue. I'm assuming other people would have told me you can't hear me. So if anyone else, well, if you can hear me, tell me. But if you can hear me, you can't tell me. Perfect. Someone said I can hear you. So hopefully you've solved the problem. Um, Someone asked me, is there a set command that can change both X and Y at the same time? And that was set position. So we actually used it when we did set position. That was the X and that was the Y. If you want, you can do set X minus 150 and then on a separate line, set Y 0. Set position allows you to do it in one go. So, um, okay, good. We've got the ball. Let's make it fall down. This is, it might seem tricky. By the way, let me go back to Um, 3. I'm going to go for 3 in my case, but you pick a number that's useful for you, right? So this is how fast the ball is going to move. I want it to fall down, right? And in reality, when you throw a ball or a cannonball, gravity is pulling it down. So let's put in gravity here. But don't worry, we're not going to be talking physics here, right? So we're going to skip on all of this. Gravity is just a number. How much do I want to pull the ball down? Once again, you may want to play with this number. If the numbers I have work for you, try minus 0.05. But when we run it, you can change this number. Now, this doesn't do anything yet. All we're doing here is we're creating another object. These are numbers now. We've seen strings earlier, we've seen lists, we've seen screen. This is just a number. 3 minus 0.05. And we're giving it a label. What do I want to do with this? I want to say every time you move the ball upwards a bit, after you do that, I would like you to take the ball's y velocity. Remember, this is currently 3 in my case. Yours may be different. And I want you to change it. I want you to make it equal to whatever it is now, plus whatever the gravity is. So that's why this is a minus, right? So this means that the ball's y velocity will start off as 3. That's the speed, right? It's 3 pixels per frame, but imagine it's meters per second or whatever. It's not. But then I'm going to slow it down a bit. It's going to be 2.95, and then 2.90, and then 2.85. So every time I'm slowing down only the y, because gravity only pulls down, right? And that's all we need to do. Let's run the code. There we go. Did you see my ball? I'll do it again. It's best to see it on your screen as always. Yeah, sorry. It's going too quickly on mine. I'll slow it down a bit. Let's try those. There we go. So it goes up and then it falls down. Again, pick the numbers that work for you. Right. Um, that's good. We'll finish this in about 10 minutes and then we'll go for Q&As. Let me once again, since I had the problem with my streaming, I haven't been looking at the chat. Apologies. Someone said earlier that they can't hear me on YouTube. Now, unfortunately, that's a problem with the streaming. Let me problems with the streaming, it seems. So there was some problem with the streaming there. You see, it was telling me there something went wrong. Someone said that on YouTube you can't hear me anymore. I haven't changed any of my settings here, so I'm afraid that's out of my control. I wish I could flick my fingers and fix all the technical problems everywhere. It's unfortunately the streaming service we're using. It didn't like something. Who knows what? Apologies for that. Well, you can't hear me, but there is the recording. So if you can't hear me, I'll have the recording. Good. All good on LinkedIn, someone said. Brilliant. Technology, we love it when it works. So we're almost there, right? We now have our target, our ball flying. We have two problems left. Well, three. First of all, the ball is starting to fly straight away. We want to control when the ball flies. So we want to link something to a key on our keyboard. Now, I am going to go, this is really important. Everything we do now to set up the code has to happen before the while loop. Why? Because this code, lines 35 to 39, they're going to keep repeating forever. Python will never exit this loop. So anything I do afterwards, in fact, this line is no longer needed now. It's not important anymore. Any setting up I need to do it before I start looping this and changing the frames. So what do I want to do now? I want to say, look, I want the ball to start moving only when I press space. And in the good, some problems solved there. With my screen, a reminder, the screen is the object I created, which is my overall, the window I'm creating all of my game in. One other command we have there is something called onKeyPress. This is specific to the turtle module, right? So I'm going to go quickly there. And this will allow us to link a command with a key. Now, what command do I want to link? I do not know yet. So let me just put a placeholder for now, 3 dots. The key I want, for example, is the spacebar. So I need the string space, and that links to the spacebar. There's one other thing we need to do when we use the turtle module and we want to use keys. We need to ask Python or the turtle module to listen out for key presses. By default, it doesn't waste energy listening out for key presses. So we also need screen.listen. A reminder, there's parentheses at the end. You got the hang of it, right? All of these commands have parentheses at the end. What command do I want here? Ideally, I'd like a command, for example, shoot. We will have more content like that, Tarek, don't worry. But shoot doesn't exist. You can see the squiggly red line. If I run this, we've seen this error before, right? Python says, sorry, name shoot is not defined. It's not pen up or color. It doesn't exist in Python, but, and this is a really important topic in all of Python. So some things here are specific to the turtle module. This one isn't. You can create your own commands. So whenever there isn't a command ready for you in Python, you can define your own one. And in Python, we use the def command for define. So I want to define a command called shoot. You can call it anything you want, right? But shoot seems to make sense. A bit of punctuation, right? I need parentheses because many of these commands, and you see X core has parentheses, Y core has parentheses. The parentheses are there to say, do this command. Notice that this did not, however. On line 37, there was no parentheses here. If it comes up in the Q&A, if someone is curious, I'll tell you why. But in order for keeping this not too long, and I need the colon. We've seen the colon already. This means coming next is a chunk of code that belongs together. How does Python know what chunk of code belongs together after a colon? It's looking for that indent, those spaces. Lines 41 to 44 belong together because they all have the same indent. We're going to do the same thing here. Okay, question is, I'm going to put 3 dots there, right, as a placeholder. What do I want to do there? This is tricky, right? Because I want the ball to move in every frame of the game, but not always. I want it to move only when I turn it on. So I need to tell Python somehow, only do these lines, in fact, those lines, including the gravity one, only move the ball when I turn it on. I could do something like this. Ball in motion. I'm creating another label, right? You can call this anything you want. So this is like ball there. I'm going to create a switch. Ball in motion in the beginning is going to be false, which means the ball is not in motion. Now, what I'm going to write next will not work at first. So I'm going to write it, but this won't work. And when I say shoot, I want to say ball in motion is now, let's switch it on to true. Okay, so what? What does ball in motion do? Remember, this is just a label to something, which is either true or false. I understand what ball in motion means. You do. Python doesn't. I need to do something with it. I want to say these 3 lines, not the update, right? The update, let me put some extra lines. Blank lines don't matter, by the way. You can put as many blank lines as you want. These 3 lines, I only want them to happen if ball in motion is true. So I'm going to write if ball in motion. Why? Because ball in motion is going to be either false, which means the ball is not in motion, or true. Do you see the colon there? That means it's now my job to tell Python which lines I want to group together, and they all need to have an indent. Shortcut, you don't have to do it one at a time. If you select all of the lines you want and press tab, unlike what happens elsewhere where you delete it and it's replaced by a tab, this moves everything forward. So now, if the ball is in motion, which means if ball in motion is a true, these 3 lines will happen. Otherwise, if the ball is not in motion, they will not happen. The ball will not move. Now, here's the problem. Now, this is an advanced topic. So I'm going to go through it really quickly. When I create a label like this, ball in motion, ball, target, I'm placing them in the main part of my program. It's like on the main desk, right? And they're all there. However, when I define, we call this a function, right? When I define a function, a command, this is like a mini program within itself. It's like a bubble within the main program. So when I create, we call this a variable. When I create these labels inside the function, we've created a label in its own mini world. So ball in motion here is not the same as ball in motion on line 35. This is weird, it's strange. I'm going to go through it only quickly because it's something that would require a bit more time. When at some point you learn more about defining functions, this is a topic that will come about. So we have a problem here. In fact, you may notice that my editor is showing this in gray. And in fact, there's a warning there probably. It's actually a warning me saying, look, this is shadowing the name from the outer scope. These warnings and errors, they don't mean anything until you know what they mean, right? But what it's telling me is, are you sure you want this? You're using the same name, but you are inside the function definition. So this is creating a different label. This doesn't work. How can we fix this? We have an easy way of fixing this. We can, instead of having ball in motion as a standalone label in our main program, we can attach it to an object we already have. For example, I can attach it to the ball. Notice I've put ball dot there. This means I created this label attached to something that exists already. Ball. Why did I do this? I'm now going to change it everywhere, right? So I've changed it on line 35 there, where I created ball in motion is false. It's now attached to ball. So here I have to do the same thing, ball dot ball in motion, because ball in motion is now a label that's attached to ball. But ball already exists here. I'm not creating ball from scratch. I'm only creating ball on line 28. So in this case, this is fine because the function says, you are using ball. You're not creating it, you're using it. Therefore, it can access the main ball. And this is it's like a cheat if you like, right? This is a topic you'll cover a bit more at an intermediate stage when you work on things called object-oriented programming. So if this line didn't make too much sense for now, you can explore it a bit later on in the future. I need to change it one more time there. So now every time I said there are 3 places I had ball in motion, ball.ball in motion, ball.ball in motion, ball.ball in motion. Now, whenever I press space, I'm asking Python to run this command. This command will change this to true. So whenever this loop, remember this loop is repeating over and over and over again. Once I press space, when it's time for this line to happen again, ball in motion will be true, and therefore the ball will start moving. We've done a lot there. Let's run the code and see what happens. Okay. Notice how the ball is stuck there now. Why? Because ball in motion is false until I press space. Ready? And you can see that the moment I press space, ball in motion is switched to true. Therefore, remember, this is happening over and over again. But the moment I press space, this is now true. So therefore, the ball starts to move sideways, upwards, and we take gravity into account. There's plenty happening here, right? This was an ambitious project to do as a 101 project. I appreciate that. A reminder, I'll do one more thing now, and then I will share the complete code with you. I'll show you some resources. We've got another 15 minutes to go. I will leave time for Q&A, and if we need to go beyond the 90 minutes, don't worry, we will go. But I want to do this project because it's a fun project, right? But it's quite ambitious for a Python 101. So don't worry if not everything fits yet. Remember, there's a recording. You can go through this again, and I'll tell you how you can also come and ask me questions after the session. I'll have a look at some questions there. I've got a question there. I'll come to someone asked me, why not while ball in motion? I'll come to the question later in the Q&As. Remind me if I forget it. There's one more thing we need to do, right? We need to figure out whether the ball has hit the target. No, actually, there are 2 things we need to do. Sorry, there's an important one. We need to move our cannon sideways. Good news is we're going to repeat stuff we've done already. I would like to move my cannon to the left. So I want to link on key press. I want to link a command, which I don't have yet. Let me call it move left. Doesn't exist, right? You'll see that Python underlines in red. It says, I don't know what move left is. Don't worry, Python. I will tell you in a bit. I want to link this command, once I create it, to the left arrow key. And notice that this is a capital L, uppercase L. Unlike space, which was lowercase s. Don't ask me why. That's how it is, right? This is out beyond my control. It's uppercase L. So now the left arrow key on your keyboard is linked to the command move left. We have a problem. The command move left doesn't exist, but we can define it. Move left. Oops, sorry. That's me hitting the... You see the pattern, right? Same as before. We choose the name. Of course, this name needs to be the same as that one, right? Because I'm referring to the same one. There are no parentheses inside on key press because all we want is the name of the command. We don't want the command to happen yet, which is what the brackets do. Good. What do I want move left to do? I'm going to keep this simple, right? In the code I'm going to give you, this is going to be a bit more refined, but I'm going to go a bit quickly. I want to take my cannon. That's the one I want to move left, right? And I want to, let's do the same thing I've done before. There are other ways of moving the cannon, but set X. Remember, we've done this with the ball, right? What do I want to set the new X position to? Wherever the cannon is now, that's the X coordinate. Left, so minus, because left we're moving to the left, so that's a minus. And we need to put in a number here, right? Again, we could do something similar. We could give this a name. But for the time being, I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to put 10 in there. When I share code with you later, this is going to be a bit tidier. Let's see whether this works. So two things I've done here. I've defined a new command, a function called move left, which takes the cannon, sets its new X position to wherever it is now, minus 10 pixels. But then I have linked this command to the left arrow key. So when I press the left arrow key now, you see the problem? The cannon is moving to the left, but we also want the cannonball to move with it. There are two ways we could do this, right? We could either move the ball minus 10 as well, or we could do something we've done before. Ball dot set position. You could also do just set x, right? In fact, let's do ball dot set x. Wherever the cannon's x score is. Why? Because on line 41, the cannon's x position is changing. It's moving by 10 pixels to the left. So now that number will tell me where the cannon is, and I'm placing the ball exactly where it is. Hopefully, when I move to the left now, yay, the ball moves with it. Good. Now, I'm going to, in the interest of time, I'm going to give you an exercise. I can move the ball left. We also need to move it up, down, and right. But once you know how to define move left, and once you know how to link move left to the left key, you can do right, up, and this would be uppercase UP for the up arrow key, and down. I'll let you do this later on. You'll be able to move it left and right. It's exactly the same. Bear in mind that to move right, you need a plus there. And when you're going up and down, that would be set Y, and that would be Y core. So make sure one of the dangers is copying pasting. When you copy paste, you will forget to change some X's to Y's, and then it won't work. Keep an eye on up and down needs to be Y's, and left and right needs to be X. So we're a bit hampered here because in my version now, I can only move left. But that's okay. I can move left and I can shoot. What's left now is to figure out what happens when the ball hits the target. And we're done. We're almost there. How do I do this? The magic is happening here inside the while loop. Remember, the while loop is every frame of the game. And for the time being, I'm saying all you want to do in the game is the moving the cannon left will happen whenever I press the left key. Otherwise, if the ball is moving, move it a tiny bit every time. I need to do something else now. I need to say, once the ball has moved, dear Python, can you please check whether the ball has hit the target? And whenever I want Python to make a decision for me, I've done it there. Can you check Python whether the ball is in motion? If it is, do this. If it isn't, do something else, or in this case, do nothing. I want to do exactly the same thing. When I need Python to decide, that's the if keyword. Same as in English, right? If this happens, do that. In this case, if needs to be followed by something that Python understands as true or false. This was either true or false, right? You will recall that ball in motion was either true or false. Here we're going to do something different. We're going to say, remember our ball. One of the things that a turtle can do is measure the distance between itself and some other turtle. Remember, I have two turtles, a ball and a target. I have the cannon as well, but the cannon is not important here. So ball.distance target will give me a number. 50 pixels, 70 pixels. It's going to give me the distance between the middle of the ball and the middle of the target. Now, it would be tempting to say if this is equal to 0. However, by the way, equals is double equals here. I'll tell you why in a second. Or rather, I'll leave this for the Q&A, right? Because we don't need it in our code. This is dangerous. Why? Because this means the distance between the ball and target has to be exactly 0. 0.0000000. In reality, that's never going to happen, right? Because the ball is moving, the target is moving. The numbers are going to be point something. So how then deal with that? We can say, as long as it's less than, and then we're going to put some number. The size of the target in the turtle module is 20 pixels. So the magic number here is 20, but you really do this by trial and error. So I'm saying as long as the ball and the target, their centers are closer than 20 pixels, that means that they've collided. What do I want to do if they've collided? Um, I want to, again, we're not doing points here, but if we're doing points, you score a point, for example. We can discuss this after the session. I'll tell you in a bit. Two things are important. We want to reset the ball to the beginning. Why? Because it's done its job right now. We want to reset it to where the target is. So how can I do that? I can change the ball's position. Remember, the ball has just hit the target. It's done its job. Let's change its position to, in fact, we've done this already, right? That's the line I want. I'm going to be lazy and copy and paste it there. Change the position to wherever the cannon is. So take the ball back to where the cannon is. There's one other thing we need to do, however. Remember that the ball's y velocity, we were taking stuff away, we were changing it. Now we're resetting it to the beginning. So we want to reset y velocity back to what it was in the beginning. In my case, it was 3. There are neater ways of doing this, right? I'm taking some shortcuts here because this is a long project. So some of these things, there are more efficient ways of doing them. But for the time being, let's reset ball to y velocity. What else do we need to do? So someone earlier on Zoom told me they lost sound. Hopefully it's come back. We need to, well, we don't have to, but maybe we want to place the target somewhere else. So once again, how do I reset the target? I can simply take, remember that line? That's the line that takes the target and places it in a random position. If I run this line again, I'm going to copy and paste because I'm lazy. It's once again going to find the new random X and the new random Y. Whew. 90 minutes, we made it. I've cut some corners here, right? Now, I can only move my target left, so this is going to be really hard to play. Let me see. Yes, I got it right. You see what happened there? When I hit the target, it reset. In the version I'll share with you, you'll see that. In fact, you can try this as an exercise. You may also want to reset the ball whenever the ball leaves the screen. Because, for example, there, let me run it again. Let's assume I miss my target, right? The ball has gone off the screen. I would like to reset so I can try again, right? At the moment, I only have one shot, unless I hit the target. So what you want to do is, here's your exercise, and then I'll share with you the code to see the solution. If the ball leaves the screen, either from the side edge or from the bottom, that means you've missed the target. You also want to reset the ball and not the target, just reset the ball. You also want to reset the ball back to where it was. So try that, and then whenever the ball leaves the screen, it will also go back to the cannon, and you can keep trying over and over again. That was a lot. We made it through. Took me a bit longer than I was hoping, but I'll still go for Q&As in a bit. So I'll give you a bit of a breather. A few questions there. In your screen and my screen, with the same size and the same speed, someone asked me, the ball is faster. That is because different operating systems are doing different things in the background. Typically, if you're in a Windows, those numbers should be smaller. Because I think on Mac and possibly on Linux machines, there's the turtle module, I think, is sort of interacting with the operating system differently. So that's something to do, not with Python, that's to do with what your operating system is doing. A reminder that in this case, the turtle module has to communicate with your operating system because the window that comes up on the screen, it's your operating system that has to do it. So we rely on your operating system, and Windows and Mac tend to work differently. I'm on a Mac. If you're on a Windows, you may need smaller numbers. So that's the reason. Okay, before I come and check, I've been having a look at questions, and apart from some people telling me the sound went, hopefully it came back, by the way. It wasn't anything from my side. Let me quickly come to a few things. So first of all, I promised you a list of resources, and I'll show it to you in a second. It's at realpython.com/live /goodies. In fact, I don't know whether the image is whichever way / is for you, right? It's like this for me, but it might be swapped for you. Anyway, you know what / is. And I forgot to tell you that we have a present for you. For joining today, you also get a 7-day free trial, and that means you can access everything at Real Python. This site, this page rather, live.goodies, let me find it for you. There we go. That's what it looks like. And what I've done here is I've shared with you some resources from Real Python. Some are written tutorials, some are video courses, depending on what you prefer, on the key topics we discussed today. You recall with defined functions. This is when we said def shoot, define shoot. That's such an important topic in programming. If you want to dive further, we only skimmed the surface today. Then feel free to go into these deep dives, tutorial or video course. You know what these look like, but if you prefer a tutorial, these are quite detailed, right? So you might want to, if you're beginners, and you are, as the first read, you might want to pick, don't necessarily try to absorb everything through it. Often the video courses cover a bit less than the tutorials, so they might be a more beginner-friendly way to do that. So if you prefer video courses, you can go through a number of videos, and again, bear in mind that these go into quite a bit of detail. And likewise, we talked about the while loop, we talked about the if statement, we talked about the variables and the objects we create. I've shown you the interactive environment briefly. So here's a bit more. And if you want, if you enjoy writing Gaze the Turtle module, I've got an even more complicated game for you there. So some resources for you. Here's the code. And this is a slightly more refined and complete version of the code we wrote. You'll see that it's very similar. But for example, you'll see that in the while loop, there's a bit more. This is the resetting. So if you don't want to see it yet, if you want to try it out yourself, when the ball goes off the screen, what do? Try it out first before you come and see the solution. And right at the bottom then, not yet, of course, but I'll post links of the recordings later today or tomorrow once the recording is processed so that you can watch the recording in your own time. Good. We've gone through a lot there. Let me have a look on whether, yes, can I give you the link again? I will. In fact, I will go back to that screen. realpython.com /live/goodies. If you are on Zoom, and the person who just asked me for the link is on Zoom, I will send you an email with this link as well. If you are watching on one of the social media platforms, I don't have your email, so I will not send you an email. But make sure you take this, and if you can't find it anywhere, send us a note somehow, contact us, and we'll give you the link. As part, by the way, I did mention there's a 7-day free trial. As part of the trial, when you're members of Real Python, including the trial, we have a forum for members. Come and find me there. When you use your trial, come on the forum, members forum, tag me so I know you're there, and show me the code you've written. If you have questions about we'll go through questions now, but if you have more questions after the session, come and find me on the forum that you can access with your 7-day free trial. Now, I'll see whether you have any questions for me. I might have exhausted you, and you want to go and have a rest, and that's fine. Or maybe I've answered all your questions as we went along. Unlikely. If anyone has questions, a reminder: those of you who are on Zoom, you can raise your hand if you want, and I'll bring you in. In fact, I'll allow you to unmute yourself if you need to, because to keep the thing going, you weren't able to. So if you're on Zoom, you're more than welcome to jump in. If you are on one of the streaming platforms, type in the question. If you've asked the question earlier and I've missed it, let me know, or copy and paste it again, and I'll have a look. Could you put the code back on the screen? I'm missing a few lines. So yes, but a reminder that you'll also find it on this site. But you're right, I'm going to go back to my code. And on the left-hand side is up to line 26. And on the right, I can't fit it all in, unfortunately, so there's a bit missing. But hopefully, this is the main stuff you want to see there. If not, let me know and I'll scroll up and down. I could make the font smaller, but then you won't be able to see much. So this goes up to line 27, and then it starts on line 35. So if you want the lines in between, let me know and I'll scroll up and down. One question someone said, we're only updating the screen once. No, because remember we said while true repeats all the lines that have at least one indent. So this means line 49, 50, 51, 52, 54, 56, including line 62. Notice how line 62 also has that indent, that space. Therefore, the highlighted lines 49 to 62, they're the ones which will repeat. Python will say line 49, 50, 51 up to 62, which updates the screen. And then it's going to go back to line 49, do it all again. And at the moment, this is going to go on forever. So we are updating the screen every time we repeat this code. So we're doing it several times a second. Does that answer your question, Salma? When you learn more about the while loop, you'll see that you can also control so that something happens in your code so that this switches to false. And that's a way of stopping your loop going on forever. Um, by the way, the questions could be about anything, right? About the code, or as Ashwarai asked, will there be a section in future with more concepts like fast and API and other programming paradigms? So let me say my 30 seconds about these workshops. The short answer is yes. At the moment, these are brand new workshops. These free workshops we're running for the community. The first ones, we had one last Wednesday, one today. There's one next Wednesday, which is a different topic. It's not a turtle one. So if you want to come for another beginner's course, workshop rather, which is a very different project, next Wednesday, same time, same place. Then we're going to come up with a schedule of other workshops at all levels. There will be more for beginners. So if you're here and you're a beginner, there will be more workshops for you, but there will be workshops at other levels, intermediate levels, some advanced levels, some on specific topics. Whatever you would like to see, let us know. And the more demand there is for something, the more we'll create these workshops. So yes, we will have workshops across all levels, beginner, intermediate, more advanced, and then all topics as well, or topics where there is an interest. We don't have a schedule yet for those. At the moment, we have the beginners ones, but keep an eye on Real Python, wherever you on the website, sign up to the newsletter, on social media, and you will, that way we'll keep you up to date. Yes, so in some Python, someone said in Sandbox you could not recognize the Yonki press. So in some environments, if you were using, for example, some online editors, or someone earlier was using Jupyter Notebook, so some different type of Python environments, for whatever reason, the turtle module is a bit different. I've never fully understood why, and some commands do not work. It's very likely this only applies to some of you, right? If onKey press didn't work, try onKey. In some environments this might work because this is an older version. It still works in the new Python, but there's a difference between onKey and onKey press. If onKey press did not work, just try onKey and let me know whether that works. Unfortunately, the turtle module is a bit particular if you're using a non-conventional Python installation. Hopefully, those of you who stayed for a long time, hopefully you don't have too many problems. Alexander told me the ball goes a bit forward and then straight down. How can I fix it? It's very hard to fix this, but my guess is that your gravity number is a bit too large. So I don't know what number you have, but try smaller. So for example, I went from minus 0.015 to minus 0.01. Why? Because what's probably happening is that imagine if we see this in science fiction, right? If you have somewhere where the gravity is really high, the ball will fall straight away. And I suspect that's what's happening. Give it a go. Just make this number smaller. If you need to, you can go even smaller, right? Minus 0.001. And hopefully that will fix it. Let me know if it doesn't. I'll go back to my original number. What is the best way to reset the ball going out of the frame? Jesus asked. Sorry, hopefully I'm pronouncing your name correctly. So we need Python to make a decision for us. Every time This is, remember, the while loop is what's happening over and over again. Every time the ball moves, which is going to happen in lines 49 to 52, as long as we've turned it on, we're saying, I want you to check whether the ball has hit the target. A decision is an if statement. So we had to say if, and then we put something here. This gives me a number. If this number is less than 20, which means if the distance is smaller than 20. I want to do something similar. Now, how can I check whether the ball has left the screen? I'll give you some clues. We know how to find the ball's x coordinate. This is a number as well, right? So ball.x score gives me a number, and ball.y core gives me a number. So instead of ball.distance target, which gives me a number, the distance between the ball and the target, I can use ball.x score, which tells me where the ball is. 50, 100, 200. But I also know what the edge of the screen is. Let's assume we're doing horizontal. I set my window to be 600 pixels wide. The middle is 0. So we go to 300 and minus 300. So I want to check that the ball's position is not greater than 300. Because if it's greater than 300, it means it has left the screen. And then you do the same with y. But y is down, right? So y is, the height of the screen is 800. So it goes from 0 to 400 and 0 to minus 400. Now we need to check that we haven't gone below minus 400 for Y core. See whether that helps. Give it a go. And a reminder, the code I've shared with you has the solution in there. So once you give it a go, you can also peek at the solution. But don't look at the solution too early. First, try it out yourself. I'm glad I pronounced the name correctly. Uh, so yeah, John Maria said, after this lesson, I'll try to create a small clone of Spade Invaders Argate. I think it's possible. Yes, it is. And one of the resources I shared with you in the page I've given you, the article I've given you is a sort of Space Invaders game. So first write your own, but then you can also look at my version. It's an article I wrote for Real Python as well. So it's me again. You can have a look at that one and then compare your version with my version. You can write any arcade game, any of those old-fashioned games from the 70s and 80s. The reason why we write those because they're simple enough. Think of any of them and you can probably write it using tools we've done here. And if you're stuck, come and find me on social media or on the Real Python forum if you remember, and we can discuss it there. I've used Turtle for so many times. I used to teach kids as well in the past, and I've created all sorts of games and animations with Turtle. So any question you have about the Turtle module, I can help, or about Python in general, of course. Good. Yeah. Can I ask one question about the movement? Why are we moving the cannon and not the ball in the defined move left? So the question is, when I move left, and then you're going to have move right, move up, move down, we are moving both of them. So I'm first moving the cannon, and I'm saying, take the cannon's current position. Let's say it's 20. Subtract 10 from it, so now it's gone to the left 10. So the cannon's new position is now 10, for example. But on line 42, remember that all the lines that have the indent are part of the definition of move left. So move left will do lines 41 and 42, both of them. It will first move the cannon. On line 42, the cannon now has a new position. So I'm saying take the cannon's x coordinate and set the ball to that same position. So basically I'm moving the cannon and then I'm making the ball follow it. I could have done ball.x score minus 10. So I could have copied that line. You can do that as well if you want. It doesn't really matter. But we are moving the cannon and then we're moving the ball to mirror where the cannon has gone. Let me know if that answers your question, Salma. Alexander, you've changed the gravity and it worked. Brilliant. Remember, these are just arbitrary numbers, right? This is not the real gravity, 9.98 meters per second squared. This is the gravity in pixels per frame instead of meters per second. Even these velocities, right? They are how many pixels the ball is moving per frame. It's still a velocity, But instead of meters per second or kilometers per hour or whatever, it's how many pixels you move per frame. So it's still a velocity of type. Um, so question. This is just to decide where to start from. You won't shoot until you press space. I'm not sure I follow the question, Salma, but the way we've done it is we said, let me know if I'm not answering your question, I'm answering a different one. When we create the ball, we're creating the ball on lines. In fact, let me use the left-hand side here. On lines 28 to 33 in my code, we're creating the ball, giving it a shape, etc., actually to 35. And then we're saying, let's create this ball in motion label, which is attached to the ball, and let's make it false. So when in the while loop will start straight away, right? Once we've set up the things, the while loop will start repeating over and over and over again. But initially, ball in motion is false. Therefore, when Python says, is this true? The answer is no. So it skips lines 50 to 52. It says, no, the ball is not in motion. So after line 49, it jumps to line 54. And then it will also say, no, this is not true. So it goes to screen update. Updates the screen and it goes back. And it will keep repeating that until when I press space, I've linked the space bar to the shoot command. The shoot command is that one, is the function. So the moment I press space, Python says, you want me to run this function. This is a function with one line, right? It could have many more lines, but here it has one line, and it changes this to true. So from this point onwards, ball.ball in motion is true. But remember, the while loop is still repeating over and over again. So the next time it goes to line 49, it's now going to say, this is now true. Therefore, it's now going to run line 50, 51, 52, and then it will check on line 54. And from now on, it will always keep doing that. Until, in fact, I wonder what this is a question. Here I have an error actually, right? We've missed something here. When I hit the target, there's one thing that's missing. The ball is still in motion there. In fact, I haven't tried this properly, right? But in fact, that might be what you have been telling me there. And Joe mentioned, if you move the cannon while the ball is in motion, will the ball's path change too? No, that's a different question. We would like to hear change ball.ball in motion back to false. Remember what we're doing here. We're saying the ball has hit the target. So we want to reset it to the beginning. Take the ball back to the cannon position. Reset its velocity. We also need to turn it off so that the ball is not in motion. You see, I haven't tried this fully, but you may have found this, that when you hit the target, the ball goes back, but it should still keep moving. We don't want that. So we want the ball to be back in motion. Does that make sense? So this is part of resetting to the ball needs to go back to where the cannon is, its original y velocity, and we need to make sure it's turned off as well, so that when the while loop comes back to here, it will wait until I press space again. So hopefully this should work. Joe asked me, if you move the cannonball while the ball is in motion, will the ball's path change too? It shouldn't. Let's try it actually. It shouldn't. Let's find out. And I'll tell you why it shouldn't, unless we have a bug in our code. Where's my... I think my computer is giving up on me today. Oh, there we go. So let me move a bit. So, oh, yes, we have a bug. Thank you. We do have a bug in our code. This is part of coding, right? Let's see why this is happening. Now, I may not fix it here because I don't want to keep it too long. Here's what's happening. In fact, we can fix it. When I move the cannon left, here, when I wrote this code, I was assuming that we're moving the cannon when the ball is not in motion. And maybe that's how you're meant to play the game, right? But what's happened here? When the ball is moving, if I move the cannon, I'm resetting the ball's X position. I don't want that. How can I fix this? I might pause here for half a second, sorry, that's too short, half a minute. um, in case anyone has an idea on how I can fix it. Clue, I want to add a line before line 43. This is a decision, right? We often need Python to make a decision. In this case, decision is maybe you need to move the ball back to the cannon, or maybe not. You, Python, have to decide for me. Um, Use an if statement is what Alexander told me, and that's what the decision is. So I can say here, if now we haven't done this yet, but I don't want to say if ball in motion. Remember, ball in motion is true. I want to say if this is false. Andreas on LinkedIn told me if not ball in motion. Not is a way of doing the opposite. So notice how Python reads a bit like English. This reads like if the ball is not in motion. But in Python, it's like if not ball dot ball in motion. So if this is true, not ball in motion is false. But if ball in motion is false, that should be true. Hopefully, I got the logic right, unless I'm tired after almost 2 hours of running a session. So, if the ball is not in motion, only then I want you to reset this. Let's see whether this works. Notice I put a colon there, and then I had to put in an indent. Why? Because what follows if Python needs to know which lines do I do if the ball is not in motion. And Python is going to look for the lines that don't have an indent. Let's find out. So I'm going to press space and move left. And yeah, you can see that the ball kept going now because the ball was in motion, so it wasn't affected. So this is what programming is, right? You try something, then you realize, oh no, it's not working the way it's working. Now, it's not always easy to find where the problem is. And one whole area of programming is debugging, finding bugs in your code, something that's either you get an error or like we had there, the code isn't behaving the way I expect it to. And that's a skill in itself. And it's something that with time, and we have quite a few resources at RealPython as well to help you with that, it's an important skill to learn. How to identify problems, find where they are in your code, and then how to fix them. Sounds simple. It's not always that simple. Good. I'll keep an eye on any raised hands in Zoom. No one wanted to come up in Zoom, so you had to listen to my voice as much as I'm sure you love it. Well, you had to listen to my voice for almost 2 hours. But anyway, the option is still there if anyone wants to raise hand. Hopefully, I haven't missed any questions either on Zoom or on the various platforms we're streaming on. So, if there aren't any more questions, I'll finish off with a reminder that the resources are here on this page, which is realpython.com/live goodies. I actually have another page there, which is the same thing. Yeah, I've mentioned the 7-day trial. Please do it. And there is another different workshop next week. It's also a beginner's workshop. It will be a very different project. No turtles involved, no graphics involved. So if you want to come for another workshop, there was also one last week. The recording is still there as well. So you have 3 of these different workshops. Unless there are any questions coming in the next few seconds, I'll assume that I've exhausted all of you. Hope you enjoyed this session. Do go to realpython.com/live/goodies for the resources if you want to read more, the 7-day trial, and then come on the forum, the Real Python members forum, tag me there, say hello, and let me know how you've gone with this game. And maybe I'll see you next Wednesday, same time, same place for another session. Goodbye, and I'll see you hopefully next week.